For my Pursuit of Passions project, I have chosen Greek mythology. I chose Greek mythology because whenever I was in the 6th grade, I discovered a series called Percy Jackson. This series really captured my imagination, and I just loved it. I loved reading all of the books. And then, I was at a bookstore, and I found another book labeled Greek mythology. And I had read Percy Jackson, so I was like, well, I knew that was based on Greek mythology, so maybe I would just like to read some more of the myths. And I did. And then I found more and more books, and I just continued learning about a topic I really loved. The historical context. The Greek mythology possibly started in the island of Crete, which is about 100 miles from the Greek mainland in the ancient Minoan civilization. And it started as being passed down orally from generation to generation. And in the photo, that is from a palace on Crete showing an ancient art of bull leaping. Some important points are Hesiod's theogony. It was created somewhere from 730 BC to 700 BCE, my bad, and it told the origins and genealogies of the Greek gods. And it also told of the origin and the creation of the universe as the Greeks believed it. The next one was Homer's epics, the Iliad and Odyssey, written around 760 BCE. Even though they weren't written then, they would have been told orally from storytellers. And in these stories, the gods are well known, which shows that they had no introduction. They were well known at this point by many of the people hearing the stories. Much of the purpose of Greek mythology, it was to explain natural phenomena, like lightning, Zeus's lightning bolts and throwing them down at Earth, and winter being the work of Demeter for her wrath of her daughter being in the underworld for 1/3 of the year whenever winter is. And it also provided hope for the people. Whenever anything went wrong or anything happened, they could look up and pray to their gods for good fortune and mercy. What would it be like without it? The stories were a lot of the times used to teach morals and lessons, and they brought many new words and phrases that we use today. A good example of this is the story of Narcissus, who was cursed by Aphrodite because of his conceitedness and his ego, that the next time he looked into a body of water, he would fall in love with himself, and he stayed there until he died. And this gives us the word narcissist, and which means to be conceited. And the story would also teach to try not to be a narcissist. And the flower, that is the narcissus flower that sprouted up where Narcissus died. Why others would see it as important. Many brands are named after things from Greek mythology, such as Amazon. The Amazonians were being a group of female warriors, and Nike being the goddess of victory in Greek mythology. And then there are many interesting stories, and then adaptations such as Hercules from Disney in 1977. The interesting thing, though, is in Greek mythology, Hercules is actually Heracles. Hercules is his Roman name. And some other things in the movie, it's a good adaptation, but some other things they kind of aren't so accurate are Hades is not evil. He just got the short end of he pulled the short stick whenever they were drawing for the sky, the sea, and the underworld, which he rules. He is not really evil. And Heracles was actually, a lot of the story in the movie is true. He did have to go through a lot of trials, but it was not Hades who was going against him. It was Hera who was angry because that was one of Zeus's illegitimate children. And the future, it will continue to teach the many lessons, keep using the words like chronology, which comes from Kronos, the titan of time. And then brands will continue in the future to come up with new names and take inspiration from Greek mythology, and new media adaptations will continue to be released. These are my references. Are there any questions at this time?
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any culture still using the Greek mythology as their religion now, or maybe not even a religion, but still their beliefs now that you know of? Or has it all faded out to modern religion?
It's
practices?
mostly faded out to modern religions. If I'm correct, the Greeks now are mostly an orthodoxy of Christianity.
Okay, I also have a question.
Mhm.
So, whenever you mentioned you focused on the Greek gods and their influence,
Mhm.
so do they have Roman counterparts?
Yes, they do have the Roman counterparts. Many believe that the Romans, whenever they conquered a lot of that region, and many believe that they took a lot of their inspiration for their gods from the Greek gods.
Cool.
You mentioned that the purpose of the religion was to teach morals.
Mhm.
What is your favorite kind of story or moral that comes out of Greek mythology?
Honestly, probably one of my favorites is why I use it as the story of Narcissus. It's just is really interesting to me.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, we're ready to see your trifold board, Logan.
Yes. So here on the sides is little bios about each of the main 14 Greek gods. Usually there's only the main 12, but I included Hades and Hestia. Hestia gave up her spot for Dionysus on the main 12 whenever he was made into a god. And Hades, he's not considered one of the main 12 because his realm, he mostly just stays in the underworld. He is not on Mount Olympus. On the middle here you have the origins, which that is the story of how the Titans came to be and then the gods after them. And here are just some fun facts, such as Dionysus was a demigod before he became a god, and that Zeus is the youngest of his siblings. Is there any questions about the board?
I have a question about the board.
Mhm.
I've always been a Poseidon lover because I was a sailor, a Navy person, loved the boats and stuff like that. So I really enjoy reading things about Poseidon. Is there any of those on your board there that you more identify or like towards yourself?
I would say I really like, probably, my favorites are probably either Athena or Apollo. Athena because she is the goddess of like wisdom and strategy and such things, and Apollo because he is the god of lots of music and such.
Okay, Logan, I have a question.
Mhm.
For people that aren't familiar with Greek mythology, you mentioned the family tree.
Mhm.
So what do you mean whenever you said they started as Titans and then they transitioned to the Big 12 on
Mhm.
Mount Olympus? Can you explain that for me?
Yes, it all started, everything in Greek mythology says it came from chaos. From that came Gaia and Ouranos, and these two were the earth and the sky. And they had the children of the Titans. The main ones that I focus on are Rhea and Cronus, who them two had, their children were all of the Greek gods. The first 6 being Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. Those were the first 6 Greek gods, and they were seen as more powerful than the Titans. And so, Cronus, Rhea had the children, and she brought them to Cronus, and he had gotten a prophecy after he had killed his father, Ouranos, saying that his children would rise up the same way. So he immediately, as soon as the children were brought to him, swallowed them whole. And this happened 5 more times until finally Zeus was born, and this time Rhea replaced him with a rock. And Cronus at this point he didn't care, so he just ate it straight away, didn't even look at it. And Zeus was hidden away on a mountain until he grew up, where then he became powerful enough, he came back, he snuck in, became a cupbearer for the Titans, made two mixtures, one to make Cronus throw up, the other to put everyone else to sleep. So then they main six were able to escape, where then a 10-year war started, where at the end the gods took over and made their palace on Mount Olympus.
Okay, thank you.